Jared, you had posted something on, I believe, Facebook. Rel, you had commented. So start with what you posted first. Um, and then we can go from there. You said you had some questions about it, so we'll go from there.
I posted saying, as a proud gun owner, I think it's my duty to educate anyone on firearms. I know a lot of people have a fear, but it's the fear that leads to biased and rational creations, and we live in a fear-driven society.
Yeah. So when I read that,
Mm-hmm.
it made me think. Like he's 100% right. Like a lot of people have a fear because they're not educated, and reading that he was regardless of him being proud or not, that he actually was a gun owner that that lives in our city, which I had no idea that you could do that. I'm gonna let you know outside of it being tied to your work or whatever the case may be. And it made me think in general of like black people in general being more educated around guns because I mean it is a right afforded to all Americans,
Mm-hmm.
but our ownership is looked at differently, and I think part of it starts with educating ourselves around it. Like a lot of black people feel that they probably shouldn't have them because of the way they're going to be looked at, which has some basis of truth in it as far as how they may be viewed or whatever. But I think if they were educated, which in turn will allow them to be to be able to educate people, it'll quell some of those fears. So if I could, I'm not going to play like I'm an interviewer, but if I could,
Interview.
The
but
question is the
I would first want to know what made you decide to become a gun owner.
So I can actually answer that as well as go back to something you said in that, which was some black people feel that you shouldn't have guns because of how we're viewed or how the perception is when it comes to having a gun. Um, it all ties down to I don't want to be a victim or be as much as a victim as anybody else. And what I mean by that is self defense is your first right.
Absolutely.
No matter what, if you're on the street, if you got you first thing you're gonna do is use your hands, whether it be to knock somebody out or if you want to call for assistance. But you have your right to defend yourself regardless of the fact. Whether you're in your house, outside, or so forth, you have to defend yourself. You can't rely on government agencies such as cops or whatever to be there for you to, like, somebody breaks into my house or your house. You ain't gonna say, whoa, I don't have a gun. Please, let me
Give me
wait.
a second. I'm gonna call the cops.
I got a call. I got to make a phone call.
Right. Yeah.
Please wait.
Right.
as you want to go into your crime.
Right.
Like you have to defend your castle. Your castle is your home. And I know a lot of states, like New York, is not one of those castle doctrine states, which is silly. But a castle doctrine, what that is basically, it's your house is your home. You have all right to defend your home. New York does allow you to defend your home, but there's a lot of loopholes that they write to the laws to make you feel like you shouldn't even do that.
Right.
But like I said, me wanting to go into being a gun owner is one. It's always for self defense. I don't feel like I need a gun to walk out in the house, for my own safety. But even though it's not on my hip as I leave and walk throughout New York City because it is not a legal right for me to do it yet.
Okay.
And I'll go into that down the line. But if I'm out somewhere in the state that does allow me to carry, I do have a non-resident Utah permit, which allows me to carry in 33 states.
Okay. To outright carry or concealed carry?
Concealed carry.
Okay.
To be an open carry, you have to be a resident of that state.
Okay.
Like Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania is an open carry state, but you have to be a Pennsylvania resident to open carry. Same applies in like Texas. Actually, I think Texas is more lenient. You can even have to really.
It's Texas.
Yeah. Because Texas, Oklahoma, and a few other states.
Sounds about right.
They are what they call a constitutional carry state, which means the Constitution says you have the right you don't need permission from the state to say you need our permission to do this.
Exactly.
Like New York says, no, you need my.
Mm-hmm.
It may be written in there, but you need my permission though.
Right.
To say that, which is also an infringement on the Second Amendment as well. So New York has its way of underwriting laws, but yeah, to me, it's like I wanted to be a gun owner because, growing up, this neighborhood wasn't always that safe. And even though gentrification hit and so forth, I don't care. I still will always defend my home, and I will always defend myself no matter what. If I'm, and I'm going ahead of things, but even in the case of, and I believe as any gun owner, not just education but training, always matters. I train as much as I can. Like,
you hurt yourself if you don't really know how to.
That's exactly, and that's what people have this fear of, and that's why I say irrational fears is because you see the shit that goes on TV and they think that means that's the whole thing. Everything is just it's so crazy. Everybody got guns. Everybody's shooting. It's like if you look at the numbers, and I hate to say that, but if you look at numbers, it's really a small percentage of the total crime rate and so forth. Everybody want to say black on black crime or whatever. You have a right to defend yourself against anything, and that even includes law enforcement. Right. And that scares people, especially black people in law enforcement, black people in politics. You have your right to defend yourself against something that is unjust. That's why I had no problem with Breonna Taylor's boyfriend doing that. Right. One, even though they changed the law for it, but even before that, you knock into my home unannounced. Right. I don't care who you are. I will shoot first.
Right. And that's exactly why he has no charges.
So he didn't do anything wrong.
Right. Yeah.
He was actually in it right. His paperwork was legit. He was good to go.
Right.
A lot of people don't look into that case specifically. That's one of the reasons why the law was changed, because that was the exact example of why that law isn't really good. And I had this conversation with a couple people as well. It's like a no-knock warrant is saying we have the right to bust in this house and and get busy. But there's a constitutional law that says I have the right to defend this house.
Right.
Especially
it's mine.
Yeah, so you got two pieces of paperwork conflicting.
Right.
And in case, remember, just last week we saw an episode, what was that, Cops or whatever, and it was the wrong house. Yep. They was like, this ain't, we got 5 miles that way? Okay. And if if the intel's not correct, look, even in the Breonna Taylor case, they were looking for an ex-boyfriend.
Right.
He ain't been there in whoever knows how long.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And unfortunately, she passed away from it. But the best thing that we really could get from that situation was them changing that law. Unfortunately, the cop that shot her was not in the wrong at that time. You know what I'm saying? However, going forward, they did remove that ability from police. And this, you can see both sides. Obviously, if I'm going to a drug dealer's house, I don't want to say, "Hey, drug dealer, we're coming in," and you flushing. Give me a minute.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Right. And I get that. Right. But a lot of what we need is de-escalation of situations. And kicking in the door, waving the 4-4 is not the best procedure and we need to find some sort of a happy medium if that's possible.
And that's what a lot of people outside of really us, and I mean us meaning, actual thought-minded people who are scared of the notion of defund the police. It's not get rid of police all in general. No,
that doesn't even make sense.
It's like New York State, has a surplus of however many $100 million. They have to exhaust however that $100 million is, because if they go under it, then that means next year
they're gonna get less money.
So the police force, they get X amount of money, and you have to exhaust all that for training and whatever. And the idea of me losing money makes people fearful.
Right.
It makes people morale go down. But it's like, if me and you are on patrol, we ain't seen that money.
Right.
We don't see that money for for like, they're not gonna give us extra uniform money.
Right.
Exactly.
Or
a lot of that goes to, I think New York has one of the highest budgets, and a lot of it is for their terrorist
Right.
protection. So if the guys we see at Times Square
Right.
fully vested up in, the automatics and
Mhm.
tanks and vehicles and things. And I think New York is one of the highest budgets for that. And, I mean, not to say, but we've only, the only real terrorist attack we had was on World Trade twice.
Mm-hmm.
They consider certain things terrorism attacks, whatever, but we don't really see it that much. I mean, we seen a domestic terrorist attack in January. They ain't really pay that much attention to, but you know what I'm saying, when they want to give us the fear of the Muslims and saying this, that, and it's like we've only really had they tried to bomb the World Trade once in the '90s, and then they obviously flew the planes in there.
Right.
There's no budget for somebody flying a plane into a building.
Nah.
We don't that's the police can't do nothing about that.
Nah.
Correct.
All they gonna say is, that's crazy. Damn, they flew a plane, and maybe
Yeah.
we get air marshals on that. Like
Yeah.
that's their budget, maybe. You know what I'm saying? So the budget that we have for, like I said, them guys in Times Square, how often are they really activated? They just stand there.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? They standing there. They patrol. They got the little right there from like 42nd, 43rd, and Broadway. They be all around there, but
Even when 45 was in office,
mm-hmm.
you saw all of that. You saw a lot of resources being devoted to that whole area around
Mm-hmm.
Trump Tower.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Because
He wanted to live there at first,
Yeah.
and then they finally took him to service.
You get the
We have-
So then you had
Yeah.
you had to pay overtime for all the officers.
they
who wanted
even
to
and it's
run.
still now. What's that? 56th Street, I think, is
Mhm.
like no longer a through street.
Mhm.
They had the front is barricaded and stuff, because he's obviously, when you're the president, you're like the president for life, like
Right.
you're retired from there.
Yeah.
So they still have,
As long as his name is on that, it's going to
and his home, and that's his home. It just so happens his home is in the middle of Midtown, like
Right.
you know what I'm saying. And they had to really redo it. That used to be a tourist spot as well. There's like a little promenade, the first 2 floors, mezzanine, whatever you want to call it. People visit the stores and it. Now it's president house, and we got dudes with earpieces walking around in dark shades.
And he may live in Florida as a permanent resident because I know he applied.
I think now, yeah.
I think that's, but it still doesn't matter. That's still always going to be his
Mhm.
home. As long as that name is there, it's
Mhm.
always going to be his home.
And he lived there because he has Trump Towers and other places, Trump buildings and palaces and whatever. Trump,
along the 7.
but most of those are just like the naming rights that somebody else owns, and those are just buildings. Whatever. He actually lived on Fifth Ave, and that was the difference. So that's why I forgot whatever street that is, 57, 56.
That's 56.
Yeah, but the one around the back, like where the Nike store was at, is the one on the other side. That street you can't go through no more. The front got the little blocks in front of it because the car trying to run through there. There's always armed guards and stuff around there, and that whole block is hot right now, forever.
So I know you also asked about black ownership, especially so, and it ties to a true theory that I've heard other people say, which is gun control in its essence is racist, and to a degree it is true. Reason being is because a lot of the gun laws that we have hurt. It may hurt everybody, but it really hurts us. Going back to 1968, where they said felons are no longer allowed to to own. And yes, in theory that may sound cool, but think about the biggest ethnic group that gets locked up.
Right. Yeah.
And it doesn't have to mean, it doesn't even matter what the charge is.
Right.
A rapist, a murderer, a weed pusher, same person in the eyes of the law.
Right. So
if you come out of jail and your life, you feel threatened, your life, you're not allowed. Even if it feels a bogus charge, even if it's a bogus charge, you are now liable to lose your life at the hand of somebody else because you cannot defend yourself out in that street.
Yeah. As well as other rights, voting rights.
Yeah.
A lot of your, it's funny. It kind of brings you back to that 3/5 kind of mentality.
It literally is.
You're lesser than a person now,
Yep.
even though you paid your debt to society.
Right.
Allegedly.
Allegedly.
We still look at you as lesser than.
Yeah.
That's what that says.
There's a lot of rights that ex-cons or felons get stripped away, which I don't even understand. I mean, not to go too off on the tangent, but like just like how when they don't let them vote, like
Right.
you know,
Mhm.
if I committed a felony and I've done my time, I've come out and I'm a
I'm
citizen.
supposed to be.
I'm a citizen.
Right.
What decisions that are being made still do affect me.
Mhm.
You know, what does me being a felon? What does that have to do with me not casting a vote? That all just sounds like you're just trying to suppress the number of But going back to guns and black people, I think black people in general should definitely, and everybody, people have different feelings toward guns. Some people don't like them or whatever, but I think black people should really start looking into gun ownership more if it's something that they're into or have that, like, they want to do, but have some doubts, because at the end of the day, you look at white people there, certain parts of the country, their 10-year-olds already know how to handle guns. They're taught how to be safe around guns. They're taught the proper use of guns, cleaning, all that. They're not like trigger happy kids. I mean, some of them turn into that, like, you can give a gun to them and they'll put safety on. They'll take, they're like they're pros, and they're kids, and if they're taught properly, they're taught the dangers. I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Absolutely.
But I've seen the question posted. They always have these memes and pictures on Facebook when they show like a little black girl with a gun. They be like, "Is this acceptable?" And I always wonder why even ask that question. Because if it's acceptable for any other kid, why would it be not acceptable for her?
To me, when I see memes like that, the only thing I always look for is for the safety aspects. If her fingers on the trigger, then that's the only time I'll say no.
Right.
Outside of that,
because if anybody's fingers on the triggers, but you know what I'm saying, like
never,
it's like
you always have your finger off trigger unless you want to shoot.
And
never do that.
And we have a right to protect ourselves as well. And I just think of those families that live in the deep racist South, in those neighborhoods where white people don't want them, but these people have their families in their houses. This ain't the 40s and the 50s, but a community gets mad enough, they know how to make excuses for why they did certain violent things to black people. Do you want to be in the house not able to defend your family against these people who have their guns? Like just like you said, the right to defend yourself is supreme. You know what I'm saying? Like there was nothing that goes on that, and I really am speaking to black people who, and their guns are a hobby for some people. For you it's self-defense, and you're educated on it because if I'm gonna have something like this in my home, I'm gonna need to learn how to use it, how to be safe. I need to be educated. But some people look at guns like they look at cars or stamps or whatever. They're into the craftsmanship, the technology, which is all well and good too. So I'm sure there are black people like that as well, but they look at it like, okay, well, I apply for this license, or like, what are my neighbors gonna say when they find out? I'm every house on this block has a gun, but when there's one in my house,
they look at you different,
right? Now it's like, okay, well, I understand this, or imagine like a black membered gun club. I watched a YouTube video about a month ago of a guy. He has like a gun channel or whatever, and I guess he's part of a gun club, and he made a video talking about, because he had like people commenting and asking him like, hey, I want to do a principally black gun club, and he made this video basically letting them know things that he wasn't against it at all, but he just was giving them a lot of warnings. Like he told them, like, when you make your first meeting, invite the police. He said invite the police. Let them understand what you guys are. But all these things that I'm not sure that he would tell a white gun club. Right? He was like, make sure everybody is dressed. Like he said, he made a point of. He said, don't have everybody there dressed properly in suits and stuff like that because it's gonna look fake. Right. He was like, you need to make sure they understand that different types of people are in this gun club, but they're all right-holding citizens.
Mm-hmm.
They're all going to be legally licensed. But he's all these things have to be. He's like, the things that your white buddies get away with at your sentence, you're not going to get away with. Even he even said something. If you're in a state that can't conceal carry, but you forgot that you left your gun in the trunk, but you went to Walmart, cops probably going to at most write you a ticket and say, hey, you're not supposed to. He said, but you're probably not gonna make it home that night. So I was watching that whole video. I'm like, this is a shame that he's, because he was really, he said it kind of sickened him that, black people have to wonder, like, can I do these things that according to the law, I have the same rights as anybody else to do, but all these things have to be calculated just so that they can stay safe while just exploring a hobby that everybody else does.
It's no different, it's no different than any other interaction. Like even in the movie American Skin, where there's laws, but then there's the black code, where we have to abide by certain things to make sure we make it home at night.
Right.
And to me, end of the day, I have to look out for myself first before anybody else does, and that's why I always believe in ownership. Because even though you have to, and some of the trainings that I do, they are active shooter trainings, which like in the case like, and I hate that mass shootings happen, but in the case like Colorado recently, with the dude who shot up the whole thing and so forth. Somebody posed the question of, what if there was a black person who stopped him and so forth? If I or anybody that was there that had a gun and that saw that guy that was shooting, and you took that person down, immediately, if the cops ain't there, immediately you drop your gun, you have your hands up, you put yourself on the ground. You call, if you don't see cops, you still call the cops and let them know what happened.
Right.
You describe yourself. And that's for any, in the trainings I've been to, that applies for white, black, whatever.
Right, yeah.
Don't matter. But it's about protecting yourself
because when they run in,
because when cops come, they don't care. They're not caring what's going on. They're not listening to shit. They going in thinking, all right, somebody gotta get shot. Somebody gotta get shot.
Right.
You are putting yourself in the best position by having your gun away from you, hands above your head, or interlock your own self, and then identify that I shot, so and so over there. He had a gun, so forth. And if more people, not even just black, but if more people did have, especially in Colorado, you are allowed to conceal carry. If more people did have the gun, did have a gun, and saw something like that, you can prevent so many other things, because cops ain't gonna come right there. No. Unless there is a cop in the parking lot.
Right, yeah.
You are the first line of defense. Right. Now you have the choice to evade. You
don't have to
engage and so forth. But if you're seeing a life that's around you, like if I'm with you and I'm in a place where I am allowed to legally carry, and there is some chaos, some shit going down the parking lot, and I see somebody shooting in our vicinity. I'm not saying if it's outside of it, saying I'm going to go into the fight.
Right.
You got action. But yeah, I'm not doing that. Like this ain't that George Zimmerman shit.
Right.
You are outside, and even active shooting trainings, if it's not in your vicinity, you evade.
Right.
Your life comes first. But if we're in the same area, walking back to the car, somebody's in the parking lot shooting in a found area, I'm gonna make sure that you good. If you're not carrying, I'm gonna make sure that you good, and I'm gonna make sure I'm good.
Right.
And if I have to, I will draw and I will point. And you do not shoot unless you have a shot. That's the perception that a lot of people don't get. It's like, as a legal gun owner, most of the crimes are not done by people who legally have something. And if they do legally have it, then that's a mental defect on them. They got through the system, and everybody gets through the system on some shit. Like, you have people who have who have all these damn registered cars, whatever. They got all these templates. How you got a template for the last year? Fucking like I said, people slip through the cracks on every little thing. Yeah. Cool, but people who are actually knowledgeable responsible, safe gun owners are not the ones doing these crimes like that. You gotta understand that. Like, if you have a gun and you are in vicinity, you're protecting yourself, not just everybody else. Because that person around you the person you know that they're near could be your loved one. I'm going to protect my loved one. You know, like if you're my brother, you're my friend, whatever, I'm going to protect you as well as myself. I'm gonna make sure that we are backing out of the situation, but I'm always gonna keep myself pointed at the area, but downward, because I'm not gonna have like a misfire or anything like that to hit somebody innocent.
Right.
You know, like I said, there's so many levels to being an owner, and I think more black people should want to embrace that. You know, it's like music at times sensationalizes guns.
Sure.
And I think that's where a lot of the misconceptions come from. Also, you know, because we can talk forever. We can talk forever about how how in '68 how they changed the gun laws to felons can't possess whatever. But because even from that, you can also go to the Civil Rights Act and Welfare Act and see how a lot of those laws broke up a lot of black families. Because when welfare happened, the black male left out the family.
100%.
So then, now you have all these men who are disproportionate from their family and they're trying to make ends meet and so forth, whatever. But, it's to me, it's like, don't feel like you can alienate or that you're going to alienate yourself in the same right as anybody else. You have every much a right to defend yourself or your property as anybody else. I'd rather be judged by 6, and I might be unfairly written up in prison, whatever, and so forth. I'll take that chance if it means I'm protecting myself. I'd rather be judged by 12 than carried by 6. And that's always been. I mean, well, nowadays by 1 because God rest my grandmother's soul. But when she passed, literally just one person pushing the casket up the freaking the church out pew.
Right.
So I don't want to be in that casket. I'll be in a 5x cell, whatever, 5x7 cell, whatever, with some random dude look like The Rock. I don't care. I'll take that. I'll take that.
They might anal rape you in jail.
Yeah.
I'm fighting. I'm going to fight.
Yeah.
I'm fighting. That's when the guns come out. That's when the guns come out.
Anally raped.
You can't take my booty. Right? But I'm taking that chance, and I'm hoping that I have the best lawyer, or I have a good enough lawyer for that, because, like I said, it's about self-defense.
Let's talk about that for a second. So you're talking about having the best lawyer, or whatever. What are you legally allowed to do in New York City with your gun? So let's take a scenario, right? Let's take a scenario. Say you don't know who I am, and you're in your bedroom, and you hear some noise out here. You open your bedroom door and you see me, right? Obviously I don't belong here. You don't know who I am. So you see me and I have that stereo in my hand. So then I hear you, I look, and I'm like, oh, right? So do you have now the legal right to get your weapon?
Yes.
Okay.
I have the legal right to get my weapon. And here's where New York fucks you.
Okay.
Do you have the legal right to discharge your weapon?
Right. So I guess in that instance, let's say if I'm holding the stereo, both of my hands.
I don't know if you have a weapon or not.
Right. So both of my hands are. So obviously, if I'm standing here with that, and you're standing over there with a gun, I definitely don't pose that much of a threat to you with your gun drawn, both my hands occupied. So I would imagine in that instance, you're supposed to use your gun as some sort of deterrent for me. Like I should be, behooved to leave now because you. So
you got me, fam.
right. So in that instance, if you were to shoot me, then you would probably go to jail for that.
Well, yes and no. I would only be legally responsible for your death if you didn't have a weapon on you.
So if I did have a weapon, which let's say you shoot me, and then when you call the police, they find a gun in my pocket.
I'm good.
They good.
So if you shoot somebody,
you got to plant a
go
gun
to the kitchen.
That's what I was going to say next. That's what I was going to say next. That's what I was gonna say next.
The officer was like, "How did you know which pocket hit him from?"
Yes.
I can't.
Look, you guess, but I got him.
Look, you ain't even gotta go as far as that.
Right.
Literally, and anybody, this is your loophole, because they can't close that loophole regardless, no matter how hard they try.
Right.
Literally, that's kind of how I was taught back in the class.
Mm-hmm.
A few years back. So in New York, I don't know about New York State. I know about New York State.
Mm-hmm.
So no, in New York State's the same thing too, because like I said, it's not a castle doctrine state.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a difference between a castle doctrine state that is as pro castle doctrine and not pro it. Or no matter what, in all 50 states you're allowed to protect your home, but in states that are not castle doctrine, you have to show that person had a weapon on them, whether it be a knife, a lethal weapon,
Gotcha.
knife, gun, bazooka,
Mm-hmm.
whatever.
Right.
You know, even archery, like that's considered a lethal weapon. You know, like
the knife, sprinkle some crack on him.
Yeah.
but
in the state, in the state that where castle doctrine is in effect, it don't matter. You break in that house, just terminate on sight.
Right.
Terminate on sight, no matter if they empty-handed or not. Which I don't think.
Now, what if you?
I don't think we'll break into someone's house empty-handed. But
now, let's change the scenario. Let's change the scenario a little bit. So let's say I have the stereo and I see you and you pull your gun out. Let's just say I feel I'm Rambo like that. I drop the stereo and run at you. Yes. Can you shoot me then?
Yes.
Okay.
Because it's the same kind of scenario where it's the same shit that cops use all the time. I fear for my life.
Right.
Like, because there's no telling that. Like, I'm not gonna put myself in. Nobody's gonna put themselves in a position to where you're like, oh my god, you touched my gun, pop, pop, pop. No.
Right.
Like you're charging at me.
Right.
I don't know with what intensity or what's gonna happen.
Right.
Defend, yes. Even if it's like a situation where, if you had the stereo and you dropped it and you ran, as long as your back is turned, I can't shoot you. And that's actually something that even cops are not supposed to shoot you in the back.
Well, I feel like
unless they see.
I do feel if I was in that situation,
I'm nice with it.
And somebody ran, it's like they ran.
Right.
Like now, me at that point, I feel like if I shoot them, I'm just upset. Because the threat is leaving. You know what I'm saying? Like
he ran and said, "I'll be right back."
Oh, see,
I'm going to pop the trunk.
No, if he ran to get his hammer, well then that means he came back in the crib. You know what I'm saying? Right. That's different.
Then it's
Right.
He was running to go get it.
Right. But if he ran, I look out the window. He's still booking up the block.
If he
like
if he exits, he exits.
Yeah.
And it's not one of the things where as soon as he exits out the house, you're good to then chase after him. No.
Nah.
Once he leaves the house, he's out the house.
So what you're saying is Furious Styles was wrong.
Well, I don't know. I don't know what they do
He
in
shot
LA.
him as he was running out the door. He shot him.
I don't know LA's laws.
Right, the Cali laws.
I don't know LA's laws. I don't know
Furious. He put a hole in his front
in the
door.
And
then booked.
If anybody knows the laws in LA, please, by all means, comment. But I don't know LA's laws. But like, and it's funny because we talk about I'll say the miseducation of gun ownership when it comes to our community. You can go back to 1892 quote by Ida B. Wells, who said a Winchester rifle should have a place of honor in every black home, and it should be used for that protection which law refuses to give.
Yeah,
that's
perfect.
That's going back to 1892.
That was a time where crimes against black people, even though in 1865, well, even that 68 when the Constitution was amended to say that if we were born here, we were citizens, have the same protection under the law as everybody. But that wasn't done in practice. Correct. So crimes against black people you could just go in and shoot a black person in their house and make up some bullshit story and even whether they believed you or not, you were gonna be fine. So for them to not have guns in their homes then is crazy. you know, that because y'all can come in and just destroy our bodies, and we have nothing to defend ourselves with.
And it's funny because you know we all say fuck the police, right? You know, when they're doing some wild shit, or even just in general,
Right.
you know, from our upbringing and so forth. Like we know not all cops are bad cops. That's 100% fact. And no matter what, there is no such thing as a bad gun. There's bad owners.
Right.
Whether it be somebody who's legal or even a legal owner who's just irresponsible. There's
Right.
no such thing as a bad gun. It's always a bad owner.
Right.
First James is a bad gun.
Yeah.
Well, that's
maybe
a high
that's
point. That's high point firearms. It's just trash. But anyway, but you know, it's oh fuck, what was I saying? My bad. It's all good. It's gonna come back to me.
How you say no gun is a bad gun?
Right. No gun is a bad gun. You know, it's about the owner. But you know, I was saying, you know, about, you know, we have this notion of fuck the police, whatever. But meanwhile, we're gonna rely our trust in the police to come save our ass when some shit happens.
Right.
Like in New York City. So you asked it and we diverted from it. What are the rights of a gun owner in New York City? So in New York City, it's only but a few counties in New York State that will that are, even though New York State is supposed to be a shall issue state, and there's
what is that specifically?
So a shall issue state is may issue, shall issue, and I forgot the other one, but it's basically just issue. So a shall issue is they shall issue a permit to carry or so forth. May issue is like, we may do it, but we don't really have to.
Okay.
And that's basically just underwriting the Second Amendment, because that's within their state constitution and so forth.
Right.
But a shall issue basically is we will issue a permit regardless of what it is. But some counties in New York State, 100% will give you a concealed carry permit. New York City is one of those that will not do that unless you fit a certain criteria. The only way you can even, because everything is now online now. So even for just registering for a gun permit, in New York City is the 5 counties of New York City is the only place where you have to have you have to register for a permit to have a handgun and a rifle shotgun. All the other counties, you need to have a permit for a handgun. There is no permit for a shotgun or a rifle.
So if you want a rifle, you just get it.
You can just walk up in the gun store and get a rifle, shotgun, doesn't matter. Now in terms of when they want to, like in New York City, it's every 90 days you can get a new gun. So, you know, and it's not as easy as everybody thinks it is. These are my 3 licenses. So, handgun license, rifle, shotgun, and my Utah concealed carry. Okay. So, on the back of the handgun license, it has my 2 firearms.
Oh man, this one expired, bro.
Yeah, it expired, and don't worry about it. I can explain. So, New York City is also very tardy when it comes to
sending your replacement
to doing shit.
So it's not expired.
I have the email to prove it.
They just didn't send my man the
I have
new
the email to prove it.
Y'all with the DMV waiting to get y'all license. Same thing, bro.
It's the same thing.
Yeah.
So, so New York City is one of the worst places to register for a firearm because they drag their ass on it. One, if you're a new gun owner, it's even worse for even renewals. You see that. My man, need my shit back. But I'm not gonna shoot you. But for new gun owners, it's just as bad as renewals, but renewals. But whereas anybody like in a lot of places, a lot of people want to say, "Oh, it's as easy as getting a gun in like 1, 2, 3." No matter where it's at, you always have to pass a background check. Right. No matter where you're at, you can't get a gun out of a gun machine, out of a vending machine. Right. No matter what people want to say.
Buy one online, like
and
Amazon.
I grew up a very liberal Democrat, whatever, so forth. And I've heard those arguments from people that make it sound like, oh, it's as easy as getting a gun from a candy machine. This is not. Everybody last year during the pandemic saw how hard that shit was. No matter what state or city you were in, that shit was difficult because one, there's lines going out the fucking out the county lines, and then on top of that you all have to pass a background check. If you don't pass a background check, you can't get that gun. Right. Now, in terms of waiting periods, that's on the state. Now, honestly, even that, if you pass a background check, why should there be
right? What are you waiting
period?
for? Right? Yeah.
That is based
okay,
upon.
So you're good to have it. You
Just
gotta wait, bro.
That is based upon wherever you're at, and even that's pretty fucked up.
So what's the waiting period in New York?
Whenever they get back to you.
Wow.
That's basically the waiting period.
Wow.
Now they say it shouldn't take more than 60 days, but that's a lot because and even that's pretty fucking long. But
yeah.
But so you try to tell me that if I want to get a gun, like if I pass, like, all right, when you get approved for it, however long it may take you 6 to 8 months to even get approved.
Wow. For it.
If you start your process now in April, it may be December by the time they give you a letter saying, actually, it may be a letter, and actually your letter is not even going to say you've been approved for it. Your letter is to then come in to 1PP to basically sign off on you being approved, and then you still may have to wait for your license. So they're not going to give you a license right then and there. Now they'll give you the license. It may be like that, and by that it may be a few weeks.
Right.
But if you felt your life was in danger, you had to basically treat the shit like Minority Report. You feel your life is in danger. You have to think about your life a year from now,
right?
and think I might get robbed right about next year. This time. Let me start right now.
I think I'm gonna need a gun soon.
Yeah, that's basically what happens in New York.
One of these days, I'm gonna need me a gun.
Now, rifle and shotgun. Now, I would say their office is a lot more efficient.
Less people probably want those.
Probably so, but and even by more efficient, it's still pretty fucking long.
Right.
But it'll take you about a month or two. Like when I applied, and maybe it's because I had already a handgun license, but it took less than about like 3-4 weeks for me to get my rifle shotgun permit. But when it came for my handgun license, it took like 7 months.
How much does it cost for a handgun license?
So this is the part that's going to be kicker. It's for the application. It's $340.
So I need $340.
Nope, that's the application.
That's what I'm saying. Just to even apply.
Yes.
But I pay you, so you can be like,
Then $95 for fingerprints. So that's about $435.
Right.
$435 for basically just to get. And here's the fucked up part about it. So you see, like how the handgun license, even the rifle shotgun license, same thing. It's only for 3 years, so you have to renew every 3 years.
That's another $400.
But here's the problem. At that point you're just paying the renewal fee, which is basically the $340.
Okay.
But here's the problem with that. The problem is, even in my case, you have even when you're doing a renewal, you have an email saying, but you have to always keep that email with you. Right. You must have that email with you, because if you get stopped, like if I'm, like there was I'll get into that a little later, but if I get stopped by somebody and I'm having to be transporting my gun from a range or so forth, they're gonna see the license and be like, oh, that shit's expired. Right. Exactly. Whoa. I'm reaching for my phone.
Right.
I have an email.
Right.
My email states that I'm still legally allowed to carry or to have it. Right. Because they are processing and doing the whole renewal thing. Yeah. And that is the only thing that'll keep your ass in the jail. If you delete that email, you throw this motherfucker alive. Because that is your good.
Went to the spam.
That is your good.
Right. It's in my junk. It's in my junk email. I swear,
you have that shit in the save folder.
Please believe me.
If you're a person that needs or feels to have that card, on you that says the date, The problem is, by the time I get my renewal
Card.
my new card,
Mm-hmm.
let's just say now, mind you, they didn't give me my renewal form until December.
Which is
Mind
basically
you,
a month before it was gonna.
right a month right before it's supposed to expire.
Right. Yeah.
So, and they were supposed to start the process in October, but because it's so backlogged,
Right.
they had to wait until December. And I kept calling them, like, yo, because they nowadays, because you can't do it in person, you have to wait for a pin, and with that pin, that's when you can renew.
Right.
So I'm calling them for the pin. They're like, oh, it's coming. You should get it by. I literally got it December 1st. And then I'm like, I know this shit's not gonna be done in a month,
Right.
because they have to investigate whatever and so
Right.
forth, which is silly. But with that, by the time I get my card, it's probably going to be, let's just say July, so which is a whole 7 months after I even did
So
a
then
renewal.
it's still gonna be 5 months stacked fast.
And it's
when
not-
you gotta do it again.
And it's not 3 years from the date that it's issued. It's not 3 years from that. It's 3 years from that year, from basically from when it expired to the next time it expires. So basically, by the time I get my new card, it's not going to start July 2021.
It's gonna say
It's
you
gonna
was
say-
good since January.
Exactly. So
Right.
by the time 2024 comes, I'm gonna be like, well, damn, I only really have my card for
Card
like
for
2
even, right,
like 2
yeah.
years. Like I should get some free time on that.
Exactly.
But nah, that's not how that works.
Yeah.
But yeah, rifle shotgun is cheaper. It's roughly it's 185 for the application and 95 for the fingerprint. So it's like two something. So you save like $200.
And they can't call up fingerprints from when you did your driver's license.
They did.
Oh, okay.
They did.
'Cause I should have to pay that 95 twice. Like.
Yeah, nah. I thought I was going to have to.
Oh, okay.
But because I was waiting for that. I was waiting for that fingerprint fee. But
right,
but they
right.
were like, nah, you in the same system, so they
Yeah,
just use it.
yeah,
So I was good on that. But like there's so many misconceptions when it comes to being a.
Yeah.
It's not even just about being a black person with guns. There's just so many misconceptions nowadays. You see a lot of shit on TV. A lot of like Biden had passed some more gun control laws and so forth. And honestly, everything is based upon it's driven from fear. And I get it. You see something dramatic, you're like, oh my God, I need something to do. I have to stop this. But then you only hurt gun owners when you pass these laws. Criminals don't follow laws.
Right.
That's the odd. That's
Right.
why they are criminals.
These people that are shooting
It's
like they're actually, you think about the gun violence in the hood, right?
Mm-hmm.
None of those people paid $400 something to get their gun.
No.
But where those guns originated from, somebody did.
Yeah.
So like who's where's the real crime? You know what I'm saying? Like these people are not going. These kids are not getting these guns with permits,
Right.
and so I understand what you mean when it comes to those laws, because a lot of people they try to throw these stats in there because they're sensationalized and they're shocking. So they'll go, well, look at Australia. Australia has this strict gun, and they never have mass shootings, and they never.
Yeah, you know why? Because that's in New Zealand. They got, and they still have people who do have guns.
Mm-hmm.
It's just it's illegal.
Right.
Like even Japan, they're the only people who are allowed to have guns are cops. But in hell, maybe their cops are a lot better trained than American cops. But I'd be damned if you tell me the only person who can have a gun is a cop.
Because it sounds to me that fear is the reason people want guns, and fear is the reason people don't want guns.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
It's like a catch-22.
It's a catch-22.
Right,
yeah. Like you said, Biden was saying, "Oh,
Mm-hmm.
they're fearful because of the da-da-da-da," but it's also, I need a gun because he got a gun.
Mm-hmm.
So the chicken and the egg, either you want it or everybody's trying to get to the same point where there's less gun violence.
Right.
So everyone's pretty much just saying, is it better to have more guns or is it better to have less guns?
But here's the problem: if you do less guns, all right, fine. So let's just say America was to all of a sudden say, you know what, guns are illegal.
Right, another amendment now.
Okay.
Like, amend
Now
the amendment.
guns are illegal. All right, cool. So now I turn my gun in and so forth. Now somebody breaks into my house and they have a gun. Now I'm still stuck in it.
Right.
I'm still stuck behind the behind the 8 ball that they said.
Oh, you build a
What
safe.
protect me?
You have a safe room. So when they bust it with the gun, you lock into the room. Ah,
Yeah, see, now I ain't got the money like that. But
you would if you wasn't paying for that gun.
but that's what I'm saying. It's like,
Or you train your dog to
well,
get him.
I mean, my dog should probably at that point should be able to sick him.
But,
But he'll
Right now, she'll love him.
but the thing is, I mean, if there's less guns, the chances of someone breaking in your house with a gun would be less likely as well.
Yeah, it can.
I'm not saying the gun laws. I'm saying the manufacturing of guns.
Oh, okay.
Because the issue with a lot of the gun manufacturers is they're the same people in office that saying, yes, we need guns, or they go to war, we make more. A lot of them are double dipping in the politics of it as well. So again, like I said, the fear, like you said, it's the fear of someone breaking your house with a gun is why you want a gun.
Right.
And it's also the fear of someone saying, there's too many mass shootings, we need less guns. So,
but then nobody said we need less cars. That's and it's not like I'm making light of mass
People
shootings,
dying, right.
But
well, there's no mass vehicular manslaughters.
But that gun, in terms of gun deaths, and I actually looked at it because they actually have stats of gun deaths. Last year's numbers haven't been crunched in total yet. I have 2019 stats, and in terms of weapons, in terms of people who died by a firearm,
and this covers regardless of how they died.
Doesn't matter.
Right, okay.
Doesn't matter. It could be rifle, handgun, shotgun, explosive. It's 10,000. I have the exact number, but it's 10,000. So by firearm. So in terms of people who were murdered by a weapon,
murder.
13,927, 10,258 were by a firearm.
So wait, let me back you, Barry. You said in the year 2019, there were only 13,000 people murdered by a firearm?
By a weapon.
By a weapon, period.
It could,
so
be,
10,
it could be a firearm.
It could be a baseball bat or something like that, right?
It could be an explosive. It could be a firearm. It could be lead pipe, whatever.
Right. But the 10,000...
10,258 were by a firearm.
Okay.
33,000 people died by a motor vehicle. Whether it be somebody got into a car accident, suicide, homicide.
Okay. And that's what I was going to say. The thing is with that number is how many of the people was the driver, how many of those people were the shooter. So there's more guns killing other people, whereas a lot of those vehicular issues could be someone falling asleep at the wheel. So there's other it's not like I'm going to run him over. You're not intentionally using your car as the weapon. When you pull that gun out, you're aiming it at someone. And I don't know if they're counting suicide in those numbers as well. Someone shooting themselves.
With suicide, the number goes up to 16,000. So
okay.
3,000 more.
So that was
separate.
And that's what I'm saying. When it comes to the vehicular, a lot of that could be, it might not be that person driving. I may have died in the vehicle by someone else's driving.
And I just think
the numbers can be.
And I just think naturally too, more people drive than on guns.
Than on guns.
So
that's
I mean,
right.
so those numbers.
That's right. People say there's more car accidents than plane accidents.
Right.
Yeah, because there's more cars than planes. So those numbers, I'm just saying the numbers when it comes to statistics. Yeah, you can make them fit however you want them to fit, and it's just like I said. The main thing is the fear. Everyone is living in fear, and they're trying to solve the problem. Hey, either because a lot of times it comes up more often when there's a mass shooting, and that's when the conversation starts to, ramp up. Oh, we got to stop. And it's like, well, if there were less guns, like you said, someone can illegally get one, somehow, some way.
Because people do it now.
Right. If there were less guns, there's a potential for a lesser way to get a gun.
Right.
Or easier to trace it. Okay, you got this gun from that, you know what I'm saying, from that location, because this has to, you know what I'm saying. So that's what, and again, I don't know what the answer is, but that's what most people that say, you know, because the paperwork isn't working. Oh, gun control, make it harder to get to it. People are still gonna get them when they exist. People are gonna get them.
Right.
So the rules and the laws isn't changing.
Like think about back in the 80s, like when people, like during the whole crack up.
Right.
People were getting drugs and guns from somewhere.
Yeah.
And it wasn't
walking into a store. Let me get a number 5.
And that shit gets imported.
Cocaine.
It comes in off a crate.
Right.
But somebody wasn't looking, and then boom,
right.
into the hood. So,
Chicago is always the example they bring up, and there's no gun stores in Chicago. There's no there's no direct peer to Cuba for drugs in Chicago, and that got both. Yeah. You know what I mean? And that's what I always say. People always blame the crab in the barrel, but I blame the fisherman for putting the crab in there. You know what I'm saying? And that's the biggest issue. The same people that are Biden and them making those, you know, the fear tactics are the same ones that profit off of the gun and profit off of the gun violence and profit.
Right.
So
and even the anti-gun coalitions, people they profit off of
that. And that's what it comes down to. A lot of times, the fear tactic they're using and all that, the conversation, because it scares people. Because at the end of the day, you got a better chance of swaying somebody into getting a gun that wasn't pro-gun. So you have someone that was pro-gun say, nah.
Yeah.
Because somebody that's like, I don't want him. Well, we're still gonna be it. I guess I gotta get me one too. That's what's going. That's what.
Honestly, and I have no problem with anybody who doesn't want one. Mm-hmm. But it's kind of the same as that old "don't tread on me" flag. Mm-hmm. It's like, but don't tell me I can't have. Well, because you don't want, that's fine. Mm-hmm. I still, as long as it's still a legal right, don't try to sully me into not saying.
So you got one of them shirts that say, "My cold dead hands."
I'm going to buy one.
See, my thing is like when you stated your reason for having a gun is to defend yourself, and I think that's cool. But some people will just run to it's my legal right, it's my legal right, it's my legal right, right? So
which is true too.
Mm-hmm. It is their legal right, but like I've had this conversation before, and they'll be able to tell me, it's my Second Amendment. So I'm like, okay, what does the Second Amendment even say? And they don't even know. And I know the terminology was written for a specific time period, and and all that.
You would say a well-regulated militia.
Exactly. But in essence, it was written basically to say that it's to protect yourself from your own government, and it needs to be, like you said, a well-regulated, so these people I'm actually saying, well, what well-regulated militia are you part of?
All you gotta say is, I am the militia.
And I'm not asking you that question, but I'm just saying, that I think when somebody is anti-gun, and people who are really, really not educated, because just to tell me it's your legal right, that's why you feel there shouldn't be a reduction just to say it's because everything that is legal doesn't mean it's good. So just to say the law says I can have one, that's why you shouldn't take it away, to me is bullshit. You know what I'm saying? So if I tell you,
that's about slavery.
Right.
The law says
right. If I tell you shouldn't have your gun, you can say to me, well, no, I have a right to defend myself and my family. That sounds a lot different than in the Constitution. It says I can have one. So
and even in every right, and we talked about it, me and you, Guru, when Biden said no right is absolute, but then also make another amendment after that saying you can't. Until then, there's no conversation for that. When people say, and not everything was also an amendment. Everything was kind of just, we knew of. There's nothing in the Constitution that really says 3/5. It was an indoctrination or something like that. But until they said, okay, everybody's rights matter, all rights matter.
Because that's what the amendments are. They were amendments. They were changes to the
that
original
needed to be made. Right, exactly. Yeah.
And so they can be changed.
Right.
Again, you know what I'm saying? So that's what I said. He's partially right when he said none of them, like we said about contracts. Contracts are stacks of paperwork with a bunch of loopholes and wordings in it.
Mhm.
That whenever they want to put the kill switch, well, you signed right here on page 15 that said we
Right.
can fire you if you
Exactly.
and that's the same thing with every. And that again, why they have the right to take away your gun permission if you're a felon, if you do this, because all of these things you have the right to do so,
Right.
unless you do this.
And that's why they have
Exactly.
these acts and
Right.
laws, whatever that that would like be as like underliners and so forth.
Right.
But it's the same. It's the same as if you do the 19th Amendment, with women's voters' rights, you're not gonna repeal that. That's more of a hot button. That's more of a hot button issue than it is your freedom of speech, and even your freedom of speech is protected by your Second Amendment and your Third and Fourth Amendment rights.
And the freedom of speech is also now the gray area is the internet.
Yeah.
Because now Facebook, Twitter, wherever you speak on, have the right to say blocked, removed. You can't say that. We're banning you,
right?
Because
that's against our. And the thing is, they
policy,
they say when you sign up for an account, you agree to all the terms,
which nobody reads.
Right.
The end user agreements and all software that we install. The computers are the escape, the gray area. It's its own. What do they call it, parliament or whatever? Like it's not like it's in America. You're using it in America, but once you go to the ones and zeros, now you're just in a different space, and that's why they keep calling Zuckerberg and all of them into Congress, and they got nothing because we talk about 70, 80-year-old Congress people that their first question is like, "What's the any key?" And Zuckerberg's laughing. Why am I here? Like so they're asking simple questions that to him is just idiotic, and they really don't understand. Yeah. So before they can even press a charge or pen them for anything, it's like
they have to understand
we don't even know what the I had a MySpace and I don't get these smart devices and things and Google's talking to me and I don't know and
I don't even like Alexa.
You know what I'm saying? And
they're so in my house.
Right, they're so removed.
Can I shoot Alexa?
Yeah, it's hard for them to even get jurisdiction, and they were trying to with net neutrality.
Right.
And that was people were for, people were against it, but they it was the benefit of it would have been the government would have put some money into the networks and made our internet faster and so on and so forth. The backlash was, but they're going to take over our internet, and then it's going to be we're not going to have that freedom that we have on the internet that we have now. It's going to be governed by the government.
So, and honestly, and that also, all that ties, and actually funny because all that ties into the gun argument, because you have people who are pro-government and people who are who want the government to stay out of our individual life. And it's they all tie together. People, like Big Daddy government, they want that, but at the same time, you don't know what, Big Daddy government can do whatever they want. They did that in 2001. Patriot Act. They took all your rights basically away from that. Yeah. You is no privacy. You say there's privacy here, HIPAA, but even with that, you can. The most you can do is sue. Right. But people can still find out about your shit.
They said, if you say, something that could be taken as terrorism or. We have the right to now get your whole back catalog of text messages or feeds and posts online, and it's just like, I was joking. You can't prove I'm a terrorist until I commit an act of terrorism. Right.
Even with every kind of keystrokes you do in your computer. Right. If you type like, even going into this, when I was looking at numbers and so forth, because I'm looking at violent crime, in 2019, it was a million plus in terms of violent crime. So you look at that and you look at, murders by gun and firearm, it's like, that's crazy. Like, there's a gap of 907,000, and in that 907,000, constituted as violent crime. If you have death, like, and so forth. But I'm looking at all these numbers and so forth, and I'm looking at the research, I'm looking at the FBI stats, because I have, FBI stats and so forth. And I'm saying to myself, even if I'm in I don't trust it, but even if I'm in incognito mode or private mode, if I'm still typing in Columbine, or if I'm typing in Orlando, Parkland, whatever, am I doing it? How I reflect it?
because the
Because
privacy
even
mode.
though I could be researching things,
Mhm.
how does that, like, I could still be looked at as,
Right.
oh, he's looking at trying to be,
Right.
you know, the
Trying
next
to
thing you know,
figure out how to do it
they
himself.
do a quick search. Oh, here's a gun.
People
Oh,
don't realize.
Yeah, right.
People don't realize the privacy mode on your computer is just removing the cookies from your computer.
Right. Yeah.
It's a front end security. So,
Right.
so your wife doesn't see what you've been searching,
Right.
or you know, so you
But
can hide
Google
what you're
knows
doing.
still.
But on the back end,
Right,
they,
yeah.
they know what you've been searching,
Right.
and that's what people don't realize. Oh, I'm in privacy mode. All right,
Right.
it's privacy for if you got kids in the house, or
Yeah, right,
they don't
exactly.
see what your search history is.
Exactly.
But the internet is keeping track of all that on the back end.
100%.
Google and all Cisco and all of them is they got to
it
follow.
may not come up as your previously visited site,
Right.
but they still know.
They know, right? And that's what I'm saying. And the cookies and all that is what saves it, so it quickly comes back. Oh, you want to go back there? Or
Right. Exactly.
They already know. They got a whole history on you, and they just trying to see, is it worth it? Is he doing some stuff? Is we can he's just a porn addict, but he looked at guns twice. Watch him.
Yeah.
He's looking at he's on that Ruger website. He's looking at a scope. You know?
Yeah.
Like, it's
But it's like you have the right to. It's just what do you plan on doing with
right.
it?
It's
And
like
we already
it's
know they don't really follow up on some of these people. These people be plotting these mass shootings for a minute and post it online. I'm gonna shoot a bunch of people. And
oh, that's just Billy being Billy.
right. So, how did somebody just slip the cracks? Or are they being linked? Who knows? We don't know what they're going on in the back end. Maybe they want to let one go through every now and then. Who knows?
Mm-hmm.
Who knows?
I just always say, look, defend yourself how you can.
Mm-hmm.
If by firearm is your means, by firearm is your means. It's your right to do that. Your legal right to defend yourself by firearm. For me, in New York City, you're only, like I said, you have to basically be a cop.
Right.
Special carry is basically you're a cop or you're a security guard. But even if you're security, you're armed guard, you have to. It's considered business carry. If you're off duty,
right.
if you're off duty, you can't carry.
Right.
Which is silly, but but if I always say it like this, if I went to a range, even though after a range, I pack it up and so forth. If there's a crime going on inside the 7-Eleven I just happen to stop at on the way home, and there's something going on, if I'm outside that store, once I'm outside that store, I don't have a right to go. I don't.
You can't go in and do
I don't
something
have
about it.
to go in and stop it. If I saw an entry point for me to do that, or saw a way for me to stop that going on, I could if I want to.
Okay.
Now, of course, I have to face more repercussions of it.
Right.
But if I'm saying that I'm protecting the life, then I'll take that out. And hope somebody's gonna take a good case on that.
Right.
You gotta bust him like Batman and say, "I bring you justice."
Where is Martha? I'm sorry, but in terms of like gun violence, that's UPS.
We're recording you to the door.
Right.
Actually,
The police.
Oh shit!
Yeah.
Let's trace this whole conversation.
Hell
Like,
yeah.
that nigga talking about guns a little
Yeah.
too long.
Which one if you have the gun?
I'm gonna open the door remotely. Can you just leave it aside?
Yeah, we can wrap up.
All right, the door should be open. Thank you.
You got any more questions?
I did. I think I forgot it already.
Have a good day.
Ren talking.
Oh, I do have one more question. Now, do you feel in a situation like that? Do you feel? I already know what you feel your duty is with people that you know or that you love that are with you.
Close it.
I know. I already know what you feel is your duty if you're with people that you love as far as protecting them. But like, how do you feel about that situation where, let's say you just left a 7-Eleven and you about to walk in your car and then somebody hops out of a vehicle, runs in there and is like sticking the place up, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now this person is probably not even thinking about you because he saw you leave and assumes you're gonna just leave.
Mm-hmm.
So you probably have the element of surprise if you were to happen to run in there. Do you feel any obligation to do so? And even if you don't feel obligation, is that something that you would do?
And that goes to my human element,
Right, that's what I'm asking.
That
Right,
goes to my human element.
Right.
Like, what kind of man am I? Am I the person who's going to stand by and watch somebody just, be held up?
Right.
And it could be for petty cash and so forth. Like, my thought process to that, and maybe it is the gun owner in me, is somebody's going into a store with armed robbery intent, intent.
Mm-hmm.
One, they're not thinking gun safety, so their hands is constantly fidgeting, and your hand is constantly on that trigger. So the slightest thing you perceive as a cashier doing something, you're probably going to shoot. And I don't want to be that person. And to me
personally, cause someone else to get
I don't
shot.
want to be that person to be on the news, to see the news. Oh my God, I was there. Oh my God, that person died. I could have did something about that.
Got you.
Now granted, if I drove off and I still see it, then that's something.
Yeah.
But
right.
if I'm physically watching that happen,
right, yeah. Mm-hmm.
I personally am not the person that's going to stand by and do that. Like, I will call police and be like, "Yo, there's two robbers, and so forth." Now, granted, I'm not gonna be like Zern, but like, yeah, I have my gun out, I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
Now, I ain't gonna let them know that shit, like,
right,
because I know they're gonna say, "Sir, stand down." But
yeah, they would, right? Yeah.
I'm not gonna chase them down the block, as
Right.
they're taking off. But if I'm right there in the heat of that happening, I'm not trying to play superhero shit. But if I can protect a life, that's how I look at it.
Right, because I was about to say, what if you feel that it's imminent? Like,
that's imminent danger is imminent danger. I'm
right.
stopping. I'm sorry.
I'm about to say, because what if, let's say,
even if it's a rape,
right.
if it's a rape, like I have even, and that's actually part of New York. That's an exclusion of New York law.
Okay.
If you see a rape in progress, you can use your weapon.
Okay.
You can use force because even though you may not see a knife or a gun to the person's head, that's still they still count that as
that's a violent crime, felony, right? Yeah.
So even I can stop something like that.
Okay.
But I'm not the person who's just gonna,
like, oh shit, oh well.
Like, God damn,
that's crazy.
Oh, I'm going home. So
that's crazy. Get off of
y'all wild, boy.
She said no, bro.
She said
Y'all
no.
wild. Y'all wild, though.
Niggas don't listen, bitch.
Ah, damn, baby. I'm sorry. I tried. Hey, man, don't stick that guy up, bro. Oh, man. That's crazy. Shit. But it's, like, I saw the number that said 54% of black people are affected by a crime, by a violent crime or a gun down, and so forth. Now, whether it be by police, because even though the set of numbers by police is like 800 something, but even with that, it's still, we're only 13% of the population.
Right.
So 54% of us, 54% of us, are
gonna experience gun violence.
Right.
Oh, they've experienced them. Yeah.
And honestly, I don't want to be part of 54% that's a victim. And I'm not having a chance.
Exactly.
I could be a victim of that. At the 54%. I'm not saying that having a gun means I will not be a victim. Right. But I'm giving myself a fighting chance. But I got a fighting chance at it. That's what I need to be. A fighting chance. And that's what it comes down to.
Makes sense.
Good. Got all the questions? Everybody else, if you got any questions, that's Jared Hicks. Spread _1OV5 on Instagram. Ask him all the questions. He'll let you play with his gun.
How about that's good? Can I see it? Yeah.
This is my rifle. This is my gun.
I will say this. My cousin, Byron and I, we've been talking about this for a while. I'm going to say by 2023. By 2023, I'm going to say it's going to happen. Because he lives in Westchester. He used to live in Queens. Used to live in Long Island. Now he lives in Westchester. We've been talking about, because the same thing, we're having this conversation. I love it. We want to be gun instructors and have classes, about gun safety, gun education. Having all of the trainings that I've been to, have that for us, because I think a lot of us we hear NRA and think, oh my God, they're racist. Yeah. They just protecting guns. They don't give a fuck what color you are. Like the NRA, the man who runs it, he can be racist all he wants. I don't know, but at the end of the day, he's protecting gun rights. Right. I don't have to like the guy. I don't have to know the guy, but he's protecting gun rights. Now and with that, he's not saying. and that's the part I do like about NRA, and I also belong to Gun Owners America, and I love saying the name NAGA, but National African American Gun Association.
The Nagas.
I'm a NAGA.
You know what?
But you know, like with like they like all there are gun owner associations that try to protect our rights.
Right.
You know, and they fight, you know, against gun laws that they feel are unjust and so forth. And people were always going to have combative issues towards it because they'll see a parkland or whatever and say, no, but we need to stop this. And they're like, no, we just need more people to be more aware of guns. Or if you had, and it's the same argument as saying we had no guns, then maybe it'd be less violence. But if you have more gun owners, then more people will stop, and you have more people being more aware. But like, I could rob somebody, but
they probably got a gun.
That nigga got a gun.
Hey, right, yeah.
Like a shootout.
Right.
It seems like it can be okay corral.
Scarface. Way more like I got a gun. Me too. What's up? 10 paces a turn.
Split, right? Exactly. Right.
That's how it was back in the day.
When everybody had
I challenged into a duel.
Nobody had
didn't stop it. To me, America is about guns. Like it's in our song. It's in our anthem.
Yes.
The bombs bursting in the air.
Yeah.
We talk about war in our so that's just what it is.
This is a country runoff war.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? We sing about it, we reflect on it, we love it, celebrate it. Like in the South, they still reenact it. So, you know what I'm saying? So that's what it's all about to me.
I don't understand how even with Confederacy, it's like, how do you celebrate the losing side?
Let it go.
Y'all lost, man.
Let it go. Let it go, man.
Yeah.
Y'all lost.
Do the Jazz recreate that losing by that jump
You
shot?
right.
Who's gonna play Mikey Sanchez?
Right. Seahawks reenact that play where
Yeah,
they
do that.
down.
Right.
They gave it the beats mode and like, no, we lost. We're gonna try to come back next year.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? We ain't gonna just keep reenacting that. Yeah, that's wild.
It's like I said, so 2023. Me and my cousin, we're definitely gonna because it's really about being getting our education correct. You know, getting our trainings up. And that takes time and money. I also want to find a facility so that way we could actually open up a range.
Okay.
You know, and that way it's not just.
I hear there's different rules for ranges in New York City
a lot of rules.
too.
There's a
Well,
lot
like
of
in New York City, I heard they only let you fire shotguns and rifles.
No, that's not true.
Oh, okay.
Now if you don't have a license, depending on the range, in New York City,
Say that's what
then you can only fire a 22.
Okay.
Which is basically a
Okay,
little pea shooter.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Like it can still hurt.
Right. Yeah.
It'll take a lot more. It'll take a lot more rounds.
Yeah.
You know, to put something down, but.
Like your man in Harlem Nights.
Nice, yeah.
Yeah.
Stop shooting that gun. Stop shooting.
Stop shooting. Exactly like that. You know, and even with that, you know, New York has different things about how many rounds you can have inside of a. For a rifle shotgun, only 5 rounds. For a handgun, 10 rounds. And honestly, I can go on to that and whatever. But you know, but our goal, me and my cousin's goal, is to educate us because a lot of that's why we had this conversation because a lot of us have this perception of, you know, you can't own a gun in New York, and it's like no, that's not true. You definitely can. Whether you live in an apartment or a house and so forth, you definitely can. The rules are very strict in terms of what you can do with it. You can transport yourself to, locked up, of course, away in the trunk and so forth, as you're going to a range and so forth. But absolutely, you definitely can if you want to look into it. I implore anybody to definitely go for it. But like I said, him and I, our goal is to educate and train. And a lot of people, I feel like, because they feel guns are a white man's thing, you know, or like you're fearing the white. Because I have like one of my godsisters, she wants a Ruger, but at the same time she was saying something about how, you know, like, I don't think these white boys with AK-47 should be around. Like, that's the same thing. The same argument we saying about weapons AK-47s.
They say
same shit about you with the Ruger.
Exactly. Yeah.
Don't ever say something like that. Like somebody taking away their rights for a gun, the same is gonna happen to you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you can not. You don't have to like the person having. I don't have to like somebody having an AK-47. Then I may feel like shit. That shit is excessive. However, that's their right, and as long as that's their right, they allow me to have my right too. Like I said, I don't have to like it, but just be on your shit. You know, make sure that you're conscious about yourself and your awareness and so forth. You know, and that's the kind of things that we want to do. We want to do situational awareness. We want to do trainings. We want to do education. You know, because of the perception that us being black, we're victims. We shouldn't have that and so forth. We want to break that narrative. You know, we want to implore our people to at least have self-defense ideas to it. You know, we're not saying go out there and be Dirty Harry. But we're saying if you're gonna have it on you, be mindful of what you're doing. Be that aware person. You know, be that good gun owner. You know, like don't be the narrative that they want to portray us on TV. Right. You know, or on news, because that's how they portray us on news. Mm-hmm. They say we're thugs. Mm-hmm. You know, we're savages and shit like that. You know, but that's a small set. Mm-hmm. That's not all of us. Mm-hmm. You know, and that's what we want to do. So we got to try to find a place to, have a range and so forth. And that's a lot of zoning laws and commercial laws and so forth. But by 2023, we should have our shit together. And stay tuned for that.
All right. That's what's up.